Hi everyone, welcome back. I'd like to share some tips and hints, plus how to overcome some of the obstacles when connecting with universal intelligence, the superconscious mind, or what we also call the true self. So let's begin with overcoming some of the most common obstacles. You may wish to have a pen and paper ready so you can jot some of these down, but really do your best to be present. Okay, the first thing is for you to realize that you are worthy of connecting. Now, many of us were raised with religious households or told off so many times that we got to believe and feel that we weren't actually worthy of great things. So we project that onto our true self as if they're the ones thinking, well, we've committed too many sins in order to be deserving and worthy of connecting. And that is frankly not the truth, because there's nothing more important for you and for this earth, for all of us to be connected to our inner truth. So it is the single biggest priority, and it doesn't matter what you've done in the past, because ultimately the way to heal and remedy any of that is to connect and to see who you truly are. Okay, the next one is to fully commit. Now, what does this mean? Well, when many of us try something new, we kind of have one foot in, I'm not so sure about this, so I'll err on the side of caution, and the other foot in, yeah, I'll give it a go. And what happens is we're kind of doing that because we're actually preempting failure. So in order to connect and fully connect, it requires both feet in. To not come from the space, I'm going to try it or give it a go, but to be, this is what I'm going to do, and I'll stop at nothing to achieve it. Because for what we're going to do is such a milestone in your life, it is worth the commitment. And many of us commit to so many things that really don't rate in comparison to connecting to your truth. So put both feet in and you'll find that that will create a much greater result. The next obstacle is this concept or fear of, will it work for me? Now, the methodology that we show you in UI, in Module 1 and those modules following has worked for more than 8,000 people around the world. And we've actually stopped counting, it's worked for so many. Now, whether it works for you or not really comes down to whether you're following these instructions that we're sharing and also those instructions in the module. There's nothing wrong with the methodology. In fact, it came from UI itself. It is not something that we brainstormed up, or we asked scientists or the latest academic research. We went to the all-knowing intelligence that we're teaching you to connect to. So the methodology that we're sharing has been sanctioned by the UI itself. And if you follow these instructions and tips and hints and the obstacles, how to overcome them, then it's very likely that the methodology will work for you too. A common obstacle is also the fear of, if I grow and I get connected and I'm bringing answers in, what are people going to think of me? And am I going to ruffle feathers? So let's focus on the ruffling feathers first. Now, there is nothing more important than your growth. And there's actually nothing more empowering to others than your growth as well. Because to hold back out of fear of ruffling feathers is not only disempowering for you, but also disempowering to others. So imagine yourself in a pitch black room and you have all these family and friends and work colleagues that you're afraid to push buttons or ruffle feathers with. Imagine this pitch black room and you're a glowing light that is starting to come into their own and access a new level of knowledge and wisdom. And you go, oh, I better turn that off because these guys are getting uncomfortable. Well, when we do that and we turn off our light, what are we left with? We're left in a pitch black room in which not only we can't see, but nor can anyone else. So the greatest service to ourselves and to others is to actually be our light, because when we flick on that light switch, we can see then everyone else can see too. So the next part of that was, what are people going to think of me? Am I going to be criticized? All these judgments that come from people and so on. Well, what you need to know about that is those people who truly matter in your life will actually be amazed at your growth and will want to know more and will want to learn from you. And those who are the source of criticism and the source of judgment are actually the ones who don't matter in your life. So we're focusing on what matters, and those who do matter will be the source of great admiration and encouragement. It's also important to realize that connecting into UI, to your true self, is really the end of the ego's control over your life. That self-doubt and all those past patterns and past experiences playing up over and over again. Well, that ego has its own identity and it wants to stay alive. So when you challenge it with, no, I'm going to connect to another source of intelligence, a true source of intelligence, your true self, well, the ego gets very rattled by that. And it will do its best to slow you down. And we've seen many cases where people's husband's back goes out just as they're about to do a workshop, or they run over the dog on the way out, and all of a sudden the migraine kicks in and nausea kicks in. You know, the ego has a very powerful way of bringing in distractions, oppositions and obstacles to stop us from growing. So when you fear that self-doubt kicking in and this isn't going to work for me, and you feel people around you creating distraction, you kind of smile to yourself and going, that's the ego. That's the ego's way of trying to stop the inevitable. And it is the inevitable. You are going to connect to your true self. It is exactly what's going to happen. It is the process of life, this unfolding of truth. The greater the truth, or the more truth that we are present to, the more we get connected. And the ego is simply self-doubt, that whole energy, that whole vibration of self-doubt. So the more we can transcend that space of self-doubt, move into or allow back that space of self-belief, well, the faster we connect and the stronger that connection becomes. So it becomes our default intelligence. And remember, you have been led to this teaching for a good reason, and you've been led to it now. You need to trust in that. The same way you're going to trust in that guidance when you're deliberately and intentionally bringing it in. You've been led here, and you've been led here for a very good reason. So you need to trust in that, and you need to persist with it. And not persist with it from a resistant point of view or a resentful point of view, but trust in it and persist in it from a real space of gratitude. And that will really help open things up for you as well. So let's move on to some of the tips and hints. Okay, the first tip that I'd like to share is about being patient. Now, imagine yourself like a child learning how to walk for the first time. Now, when you have that experience, we're very nurturing and very loving and very encouraging. But what a lot of adults do when they're learning to connect and learning UI is they're very impatient with themselves and actually start kicking themselves the first time they fall over. Now remember, it's self-doubt that knocks us out of that connected space. So every time we harden ourselves or punish ourselves or criticize ourselves, well, we're disconnecting ourselves more and more. So it becomes much harder to get back up there into a space of self-belief where that connection actually exists. So be very patient with yourself, be loving with yourself, knowing it is inevitable. And the only way to get there is by being loving with yourself. Alright, the next tip I'd like to share is about being allowing. Now, most of us weren't raised with this awareness. In fact, we were taught in school and in life, keep trying, keep pushing. Well, it's a bit like trying to go to sleep. If you ever lay in bed and go, I need to sleep, and you try, and I've got to sleep, the more we try, the less we succeed. connecting to UI to allow information to come and to flow through you doesn't come from trying. In fact, it blocks the connection. We've been trying our whole lives, and what's the result? We haven't been connected. So in truth, as we go into that beautiful connected space, the ego-free space, as you've learned in Module 1, as you're in that space and you're posing questions and you're allowing the answers to come, allow them to be there. The same way we allow ourselves to fall asleep. So no trying, just allowing. So you always find we're looking for the answers, and we have a question, is just you throw them out there into the space and just don't think what the answer needs to be or intellectualize it. This is non-intellectualizing. This is about accessing universal intelligence. And it's where the stiller the mind and the more patient and allowing we are, the more likely we are to connect and the more those answers begin to flow. The next tip is really about avoiding comparison. Now, by now you've seen me doing demonstrations of connecting to UI or having sessions with our mentors and various other people that no doubt you've experienced who are able to connect and get information. Well, you know, it's this conditioned behavior to compare ourselves. Now, you need to see yourself as a unique universe. You come with your own set of beliefs, your own experiences, your own levels of self-doubt. And we've been doing this for a very, very long time. And you don't really know what lengths we've gone to get to this level. So to compare yourself to us or anyone else is absolutely futile. It's completely irrelevant. It's like a 100-meter sprinter comparing themselves to a pole vaulter. You're not in the same race. You're at different points, different levels, different phases. You're connecting for different reasons. You have a different purpose. So do yourself a favor. Just be very self-loving and just keep giving yourself more and more encouragement. Keep giving yourself what you need rather than, oh, I should be at that level or I should be able to do what they're able to do, and why is this person getting pictures and I'm only getting colors, and all this crazy stuff like that. So remember, it's about self-belief. So the more we compare is coming from a space of self-doubt. It's the ego's way to slow us down. Comparison is not our truth, because in truth we recognize we are on our own individual journey. So do your best to stay out of that and just be very self-loving. Another important tip is to really be in gratitude of what you are getting. Now, when we all started with this, it wasn't a whole all-knowing diary that just, spilled out of us when we first learned to connect. In fact, it was, for me, I remember it took me a good 3 years before I even got a word or some kind of sound or some kind of picture. So my advice there is, no matter what you get, no matter how small or insignificant it appears to you, is to be in gratitude. So say, for example, you're connecting in and all you see is the color purple. Instead of going, all I'm seeing is the color purple, really pat yourself on the back and go, yes, I'm getting a color. Because the more you reinforce that, the more you're connecting. That self-belief is strengthening, not dissipating. Yes, I got a color. What else is next? What else is next? And before you know it, that color's turned into a full-blown picture. And even in the picture, it's like, I'm seeing a relative of mine by the beach. I don't know what that is. But congratulate yourself. Rather than going, I've got a picture and I don't know what it is. Go, yes, I got a picture. Be really happy about that. It's just like pulling a thread. You might see a tiny little thread and you pull and you pull and you pull and you pull and you pull. And before you know it, there's an entire mosaic that's been presented to you, which is all the answers that you were looking for. And that's what it takes to really be in appreciation of what you are getting. Because the only way to get from this tiny little thread into a whole all-knowing diary spilling out of you is to pull the thread. Another great tip and hint which many people forget about is the pen is mightier than the sword. In this case, when we are getting answers, some people just sit there in this almost meditative space and ask a question and wait for an answer to come back. And so many times, because we go into this elevated awareness, some of us can fall asleep if we're tired or we've got lots of resistance. Or by the time we're out of it, we've actually forgotten what the answer was. So the pen becomes very useful for several reasons. One is that when we ask a question, we're in this space, and you start writing down the answer, it can actually pull that through. Whereas just being there, it can be a little bit hard to decipher. But writing it, and trusting that you are connected, even though you're writing, is very, very powerful. And then the other great benefit, of course, is that you can then read what all the answers were, and then you're able to integrate that into your life rather than having forgotten it completely or fallen asleep, which has happened to me many times in the past. It's also very important that you create the right space around you. We're talking about inner space, and we're also talking about the outer space. So the outer space, we'll look at that first, and that is very much about what kind of distractions do you have around you. Are you trying to connect for the very first time in the middle of a Starbucks? Or do you have people around you that don't really have your highest good at heart? Is the TV on? Is your mobile phone going to ring? You know, even sometimes having Wi-Fi on. Some people are very, very sensitive to that frequency, and that can be a distraction. So do yourself a favor and create yourself a beautiful space. If you've got your favorite crystals or you've got your favorite little relaxing meditative music on, by all means. But just keep a very nice, clean, neat space that you feel most at ease in. You know, where people aren't going to knock on the door and start distracting you. So we're talking about that was the outer space, so let's talk about the inner space. Now, as I said before, the biggest obstacle to connecting is what we call self-doubt. And self-doubt, is this egoic energy, is this dark energy that creeps in and blocks the connection. And it's really, sum total of our experiences and our limiting beliefs, and it all gets wrapped up into this identity. And whenever we go into a space of self-doubt, this identity comes to the fore. So what we want to do is, we've given the tools to clear that. That's in Module 1, using your pure consciousness to clear that space. Now, if you're going through, you're tuning in, and all of a sudden you go, oh, I doubt I'm going to get this answer, well, that doubt brings the ego out again. It doesn't matter that you've cleared it, you've just brought it back. So the discipline is staying out of the ego, staying out of self-doubt. So whenever you're tuning, getting the answers, and any hint of, oh, I wonder what that person's doing, oh, doubting myself, coming from a space of comparison, being impatient, all these things going against everything I've just spoken about, will bring the ego back in. So you do need to clear it. Now, I remember when writing the All-Knowing Diary, I was writing things, or information was coming to me about things that I didn't have a conscious understanding of. It wasn't things I had heard before or learnt before. Things were coming through to me for the very first time. And in that space, like, whoa, is this true? Is this right? And the boom, boom, ego comes up, can't get another word. So the amount of times I'd be mid-sentence, clearing ego, getting back into my connected space, that was just part of the natural progression. And that's how the book got written, by trusting, falling into self-doubt, clearing, and reconnecting again. And you reach a point in time where you're just like, when I'm connected, I'm connected. I can stop doubting that now. Even if it's new, even if it's revolutionary information, you get to a point where you just choose not to indulge that self-doubt. So if you can get to that point right from the get-go, I couldn't at that point in time, well, I didn't. If you can do that right from the get-go, you'll save yourself a lot of anguish and a lot of hardship. Just choose that, know that when you are connected, you are connected. That's when the information comes. So keeping out of the ego space is a discipline. And I want to share another little tool that can help you. So once you've used the tools from Module 1 and you've cleared the ego, well, a nice way to kind of keep yourself out of that or keep yourself protected is with the frequency of gold. There's a couple of ways we can use that. One of the first ones is to, once your ego free, you're going to find it near impossible to connect when the ego is out. This is why so many people are disconnected, because they exist in this shroud of ego, which is self-doubt. And so once you're clearing that and you're in that beautiful connected space, I want you to visualize filling yourself up with gold. And I kind of imagine this liquid gold pouring in through my head all the way down, pooling in my feet, filling up my ankles and shins and knees and thighs, all the way up my body, until I'm filled with this golden liquid. And the ego has a very hard time being in such a high frequency vessel. So it's a great exercise that might only take you about 45 seconds to do, and it can really help to keep that ego space at bay, especially while you're beginning. Now over time you're going to fall into your ego space less and less, because you're going to have a new level of self-belief and a new level of conviction. So pouring that gold into you once you've cleared the ego really helps to preserve that connected space. And a beautiful addition to that is to fill your space, your physical space, with gold as well. So just imagine this whole room. It could be a gold pyramid, gold bricks, liquid gold, gold glitter, whatever whatever's coming to you as what your truth is. Use that, because that can keep out other people's egos as well. Which brings me to a really big, I guess, obstacle in connecting. So when we do the exercises in Module 1 and we clear our ego, we hear from some people, and I've used to experience this many times, it's like, I still feel that my ego is there. And in truth, it's actually not your ego, because once you've cleared it, you've cleared it. And these are very, very powerful tools. So if you're intending to clear your ego goes. Now, so if you still feel that icky energy and that distracting, uncomfortable sensation, it's because you do have ego left, but it's not your own. You know, there are people in our lives who are threatened by our growth and threatened by connecting to your true self, and so their ego comes in to try and prevent that from happening. So what you're actually feeling is, as you've cleared your ego, you've actually still got somebody else's ego within you. So use the tools in Module 1 to clear your ego, and then hold the intention to clear other people's egos off you as well. Then fill yourself up with that beautiful gold, and then wrap yourself in your environment with that gold as well. Another useful tip is to consider trying Module 2 rather than persisting with Module 1. If you're getting really blocked around Module 1, you know, many people have found success comes from actually doing it in that reverse order. And there's nothing wrong with that. That's totally perfect, because at the end of the day, what we're all about is what works. So sometimes to go through the inner reality and work at the subconscious level is going to be the best starting place. So definitely consider trying that. Another great tip is also to work more with the energy that you learn in Module 1 in harnessing pure consciousness. Is that it works through intention, and as we're using it, we can actually ask it or intend for that energy to intensify. And that can really help for you to connect as well. So when you bring that energy and you've got it around your head or your heart or wherever it is that you're trying to connect to, you can ask it, please intensify, please magnify, please help me to get the answers that I need. You can even talk to that energy to get greater clarity as to what your obstacles are. Hope you've enjoyed these tips and hints. There are some more on our Discover UI website coming live. So enjoy that, and of course if you do have any further trouble in connecting, please reach out to us, and you can definitely book a session with one of our UI mentors to help you further. Thanks for joining me, and I'll see you guys all again very soon.